Brought to you by WikiVidi.com. 1981 World Series. The 1981 World Series matched the New York Yankees against the Los Angeles Dodgers, marking their third meeting in the series in 5 years, as well as a record 11th series meeting overall and last series meeting to date. The Dodgers won the series in 6 games in a reverse carbon copy of the last 2 series meetings between them and for their first title since and their first victory over the Yankees since, and third over them overall. This is the last World Series that a team won after losing the first 2 games on the road. This also was the last meeting between teams from New York City and Los Angeles for a major professional sports championship until the Los Angeles Kings and New York Rangers reached the NHL's 2014 Stanley Cup Finals. Background: due to the players' strike which ran from June 12 to August 8, the 1981 season was split into 2 halves, with the first-place teams from each half in each division meeting in a best-of-5 divisional playoff series. The 4 survivors would then move on to the 2 best-of-5 league championships series. The expanded playoffs led to Game 1 of the World Series being pushed back to October 20, the latest starting date for a 4 Classic Cup to that time. In the National League, the Dodgers led the National League West prior to the strike. The Houston Astros, however, won the second-half division title. The Dodgers then defeated the Astros 3-2 in the National League Division Series before beating the Montreal Expos 3-2 in the National League Championship Series. The Yankees, who led the American League East in the season's first half, took on the Milwaukee Brewers, winners of the second-half division title in the American League Division Series. New York was victorious 3-2, then went on to sweep the Oakland Athletics in the American League Championship Series. The split-season decision was not a popular one both among teams and their fans. The arrangement resulted in teams with the best overall record in either their division or league that year, in particular the Cincinnati Reds being left out of the postseason along with the St. Louis Cardinals, which lead the NL East with an overall record of 59-43 and a winning percentage of .578. Though the teams with the best record in the American League East and West did win their divisions, the Yankees finished 3rd overall in the AL East, while the Kansas City Royals finished 4th overall with a losing 50-53 record. Los Angeles Dodgers. The Dodgers got to the series with help from Mexican-born rookie Fernando Valenzuela, who won his first 8 games, including 5 by shutout. Valenzuela would pitch 8 shutouts in all and win both the National League's Rookie of the Year and Cy Young awards. Joining Valenzuela in the rotation were veterans Bert Hooton and Jerry Roos. The core of the position players remained intact, with perennial All-Star Steve Garvey at first, Davey Lopes at second, Bill Russell at shortstop, and team leader in home runs with 13 runs CEY at third. Budding star Pedro Guerrero would move to the outfield, becoming a regular starter for the first time in his career, in place of the aging and often injured Reggie Smith. Manager Tommy Lasorda was looking for his first World Series win in his 5th full season with the Dodgers after losing to the Yankees in 1978. New York Yankees. The Yankees, managed by Bob Lemon, had a losing second half but won the first half to qualify for the playoffs. Ace starter Ron Guidry won 11 games against 5 losses. Rookie Dave Righetti emerged as an important starter, winning 8 games with a 2.05 ERA. Righetti would win the American League's Rookie of the Year award after the season. Reliever Goose Gossage recorded 20 saves and in 0.77 ERA, striking out 48 in 47 innings. Dave Winfield was signed as a free agent in the off-season, joining Reggie Jackson in the outfield, and would lead the club with 25 doubles and 68 RBIs. Winfield's huge contract, along with a strong lineup and terrific left-handed starting pitching, which many consider one of the greatest teams in Yankee history, was not enough to deny the Dodgers their first World Championship since 1965. Game 1. Bob Watson smashed a 3-run homer off Jerry Roos in the first to get the Yankees started. Lou Piniella chased Roos with an RBI single in the third, and Dodger reliever Bobby Castillo walked 4 batters in the fourth to give New York a 5-0 lead. Ron Guidry held the Dodgers to 4 hits and a run through 7 innings. Ron Davis gave up 2 in the 8th, but Goose Gossage closed out the win in the 9th. Yankee third baseman Greg Nettles suffered a hairline fracture of his left thumb when he made a diving stop. The injury caused him to miss games 3, 4 and 5, but he played in games 2. Game 2. Former teammates Bert Hooton and Tommy John were locked in a scoreless duel until the 5th, when Larry Milbourne doubled in Willie Randolph for the only run John would really need. The Yankees pushed across 2 more in the 8th off Steve Howe on a RBI single by Bob Watson and a sacrifice fly by Randolph. John pitched 7 shutout innings and Goose Gossage closed for his second save in 2 games. Game 3. Prior to this game, Yankee manager Bob Lemon sat Reggie Jackson. Jackson injured himself running the bases in Game 2 of the ALCS, and missed the first 2 games of the World Series, but was medically cleared to play Game 3. Jackson was not even allowed to pinch hit. Lemon said he was resting Jackson as a precaution and because the Dodgers were starting a left-hand pitcher. NL Rookie of the Year pitcher Fernando Valenzuela lasted the entire game despite allowing 9 hits and walking 7, and constantly pitching out of trouble. He walked 2 Yankee batters in the first, but pitched out of it. Ron Cey meanwhile provided him a 3-0 lead in the Dodger half, with a 3-run homer off Dave Righetti. The Yankees cut it to 3-2 in the second on a Bob Watson homer and a Larry Milbourne RBI single. Valenzuela stranded 2 runners in this inning. Rick Cerrone gave the Yanks a 4-3 lead in the third with a 2-run homer, but the Yankees left 2 on once again. Watson led off the 5th with a double, but no one scored as Valenzuela pitched out of it again. In both the 3rd and 5th innings, the Dodgers were helped by the Yankees being unable to use a designated hitter. In both innings, Valenzuela issued 2 out-intentional walks to Larry Milbourne in order to pitch to Dave Righetti and George Frazier. Valenzuela struck out the pitches both times. The Dodgers gave Valenzuela the lead back in the bottom of the 5th, when Pedro Guerrero doubled and Steve Garvey to tie it, and Cey scored on a double play grounder by Mike Scioscia. With a lead and the Dodger Stadium crowd behind him, Valenzuela appeared to finally settle down. After pinch hitting Valenzuela's regular catcher, Mike Scioscia took over behind the plate. This seemed to have a calming effect on the rookie, as Scioscia knew Spanish and was better able to talk with Valenzuela than Steve Yeager. The Yankees mounted their final threat in the 8th when Aurelio Rodriguez and Milbourne led off with back-to-back singles. Pinch hitter Bobby Mercer attempted a sacrifice bunt, but popped it foul. Cey dove and caught it, then doubled Milbourne off first. Game 4. Saturday, October 24, 1981, at Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles. After being held out of Game 3, Reggie Jackson was back in the starting lineup for this game. The Yankees batters had early success against Dodgers pitcher Bob Welch, who faced 4 batters without recording an out before being relieved by Dave Goltz. Willie Randolph led the game off with a triple and scored on a Larry Milbourne double. Dave Winfield walked and Jackson singled before Goltz gave up a sacrifice fly to Bob Watson. Randolph smashed a 2-out solo home run in the second and Rick Cerrone batted in a run with a single in the third for a 4-0 Yankee lead. Yankee starter Rick Reuschel then had problems of his own. He allowed an RBI single to Davey Lopes and an RBI ground out to Ron Cey in the third before leaving in favor of Rudy May. May gave up a double to Steve Garvey and an RBI single to Cey in the fifth, but the Yankees countered with 2 in the sixth on RBI singles by Oscar Gamble and Watson off Tom Niedenfuer. With a 6-3 lead, the Yankees turned the pitching over to their relief combination of Ron Davis and Goose Gossage. Davis had troubles in the sixth. He issued a 1-out walk to Mike Scioscia and gave up a pinch-hit homer to Jay Johnston to make the score 6-5. Then Lopes lifted a fly ball to right that Jackson lost in the sun and dropped. Lopes reached second and stole third with no throw by Cerrone 3 pitches later. Davis then gave up a game-tying single to Bill Russell. In the seventh, Dusty Baker led off with an infield hit off George Frazier and went to third on a Rick Monday liner that got past center fielder Bobby Brown when he tried to make a shoestring catch. Monday reached second. Pedro Guerrero was then walked intentionally. Yankee manager Bob Lemon then brought starting pitcher Tommy John out of the bullpen instead of Gossage. Steve Yeager, hitting for Scioscia, promptly gave the Dodgers the lead when he drove home Baker with a sacrifice fly. Lopes followed with an infield single that drove Monday home for an 8-6 lead. Gossage never got in the game. Jackson brought the Yankees closer with a home run in the 8th off lefty Steve Howe, capping a 3-for-3 day. But Howe was able to close out the win, despite Willie Randolph pinning Dodger center fielder Darryl Thomas against the center field wall with a deep fly ball. The series was now tied 2-2. According to Johnston's book Temporary Insanity, Steinbrenner confronted Davis in the Yankees locker room after the game and demanded, "Why did you throw Johnston a fastball?" Game 5. Needing a win to stop the Dodgers' momentum in this series, the Yankees trotted out their ace, Ron Guidry. Guidry was sharp through 6 innings, holding the Dodgers to 2 singles. Reggie Jackson, continuing his torrid hitting, helped provide Guidry a lead by doubling to left in the second off Jerry Roos, moving to third on a Davey Lopes error and scoring on an Lou Piniella infield single. The game then took a turn in the 7th inning. After fanning Dusty Baker, Guidry surrendered back-to-back solo home runs to Pedro Guerrero and Steve Yeager. After he had struck out, Baker suggested to Yeager and Guerrero that they move up in the batter's box to take away Guidry's late-breaking slider. Both home runs were hit on sliders almost to the same place in left center. Meanwhile, Roos was as effective as Guidry, holding the Yanks to 5 hits and a lone run and going the distance. A tense moment occurred in the 8th when Goose Gossage beamed Ron Cey. Cey had to be helped off the field with a concussion but was cleared to play Game 6 after it was delayed 1 day by rain. Game 6. This was the latest ending World Series by calendar date up to that time. Originally scheduled for Tuesday, October 27, Game 6 was delayed a day by rain. This allowed Bob Lemon to start Tommy John opposite Dodger starter Bert Hooton. This also allowed Ron Cey to be in the Dodger lineup. Willie Randolph provided John an early lead with a solo homer in the 3rd. The Dodgers tied it in the 4th on an RBI single by Game 5 hero Steve Yeager. In the bottom of the 4th, Yankee manager Bob Lemon made a controversial decision. Greg Nettles led off the inning with a double. After Hooton retired the next two batters, he intentionally walked Larry Milbourne to face John. Lemon decided on the very unusual strategy to pinch hit for his starting pitcher in the fourth inning of a 1-1 game. As ABC cameras clearly showed, John could not believe the move and paced the Yankee dugout in disbelief. Pinch hitter Bobby Mercer flied out to end the inning. In his autobiography, T.J., My 26 Years in Baseball, John revealed that before the game, Lemon and team owner George Steinbrenner settled on the following strategy: get the lead early and then protect it with a bullpen. John observed that such preconceived strategies are impractical because of the sport's many unpredictable variables that come into play. In the fifth, George Frazier, who relieved John, gave up an RBI single to Ron Cey and a two-run triple to Pedro Guerrero. Frazier would take the loss and become the first pitcher to lose 3 games in a best-of-7 World Series and second pitcher to lose 3 times in any World Series. New York's bullpen further collapsed in the sixth. Ron Davis issued 1-out walks to pitcher Hooton and Davey Lopes. Bill Russell singled to short left field and Hooton unexpectedly rounded in third and headed home. Dave Winfield stumbled on the wet grass, fell forward and uncaught an errant throw. Hooton scored standing, after which Lemon pulled Davis in favor of Rick Reuschel. On Reuschel's second pitch, Lopes and Russell pulled a double steal. Reuschel walked Steve Garvey intentionally and gave up an RBI force out to pinch hitter Darryl Thomas. After Dusty Baker reached on an error by Nettles, loading the bases again, Guerrero singled in 2 more runs. Guerrero would cap a 5 RBI night and the Dodgers' World Series win by blasting a solo home run in the 8th. Winfield's throw typified his struggles in this, his first World Series. At the plate, he went 1 for 22 with 1 RBI. After the series, Steinbrenner issued a public apology to the city of New York for his team's performance, while at the same time assuring the fans that plans to put the team together for 1982 would begin immediately. The Yankee owner was criticized by players and press alike for doing so, as many people felt losing a World Series was not something for which a team needed to apologize. In addition, Steinbrenner dubbed Winfield Mr. May to contrast him with Reggie Mr. October Jackson. After the final out, Keith Jackson, play-by-play man for ABC Sports, said, "The Dodgers are the 1981 champions of baseball. For the first time, there were co-MVPs in a World Series. Cey, Yeager and Guerrero shared the award." Epilogue. After combining for 10 division titles and 8 World Series appearances between 1974 and 1981, the 1981 World Series marked the end of an era for both teams, as they soon were without key contributors. The Yankees lost Reggie Jackson, Greg Nettles, Goose Gossage and Tommy John, among others. The franchise would not reach the postseason again until 1995, and would not win another title until 1996. Key Dodger losses included Ron Cey, Steve Garvey, Davey Lopes, Reggie Smith and Don Sutton. With a stronger farm system and adding valuable players via trade or free agency, they did win division titles in 1983 and 1985, while narrowly missing in 1982. Their success culminated with a World Championship in 1988, becoming the only team to win 2 World Series between 1978 and 1990. However, since their 1988 World Series win, the Dodgers did not appear in another World Series until 2017. Despite reaching the NLCS in 2008, 2009, 2013 and 2016. The Yankees, on the other hand, appeared in 7 World Series in that span, winning all but 2001 and 2003. Broadcasting. ABC covered this World Series on television, its third under the then-present contract of alternating series coverage with NBC. Keith Jackson and Al Michaels shared play-by-play duties, with Michaels replacing Jackson when the latter deferred to his primary role as ABC's lead college football announcer. Color commentary was handled by Howard Cosell and Baltimore Orioles pitcher Jim Palmer. Palmer would later join ABC's baseball broadcast team after retiring as a player. ABC's coverage was also simulcast over the Yankees and Dodgers local television outlets, respectively WPIX in New York City and KTTV in Los Angeles. This World Series was the last to be called by Jackson in broadcast booth. Michaels became ABC's lead baseball play-by-play announcer by the time the network next aired the World Series in 1983. On radio, CBS Radio carried the games, with Van Scully handling play-by-play, and Detroit Tigers manager Sparky Anderson providing analysis, working together for the third consecutive year. Scully was the Dodgers' primary local announcer during the regular season. In popular culture, after the series, Johnston Yeager Roos and Rick Monday of the Dodgers recorded a cover version of Queen's "We Are the Champions." The quartet performed the song on an episode of Solid Gold, the syndicated TV show. Brought to you by WikiVidi.com. Would you like to know more?